Okay, sorry, Laura, you didn't introduce yourself. Do you want to just unmute and say hi? Just say who you are and where you're from.
Hello, Laura from Matlock, Dale's Climate Hub. I was up at the members' room yesterday for the District Council planning meeting to speak in support of renewable energy project in a house in Wordsworth. So we get involved, we do what we can. I'm really pleased to be meeting Caroline. I've got to put my glasses on, sorry. Hello, pleased to meet you. Off we go.
Laura. Okay, Caroline, over to you then. And please start your presentation.
Thank you. And this is very strange because I can't see anybody at all, just my slide. So apologies. It's a bit odd. So yeah, I'm Caroline Topliss. I'm the Climate Change Programme Manager at Derbyshire County Council. So I'm relatively new to the council and the post. I've only been in position for just over 4 months now. So I joined the council back in April. Working with Denise Ludlam, who I think most of you probably know. I think she's attended your meetings in the past. So I make up the second half of our climate change team now. There's 2 of us, which is fantastic. So my remit is very much around getting the strategy developed. So I came into post sort of halfway through the development of our new climate change strategy, and also developing the programme and the governance around the climate change work at the council and how we can work more widely across the county. So I need to apologise in advance if there's any strange noises in the background. I've got 2 young children. It's sort of bath and bedtime, so any screeching, it's not somebody being murdered. It's my kids or my husband. So apologies for that. Hopefully it should be all right. Yes, I've shut all the doors, so hopefully there shouldn't be too much background noise. So yeah, I mean, thank you for inviting me to speak. And I think I was requested to focus on sort of the climate change strategy, obviously, and also a bit around climate change training and our new improvement and scrutiny committee on climate change, biodiversity and carbon reduction. So yeah, I've got about 10-15 minutes worth of slides, and then yeah, definitely happy to have a discussion and questions afterwards. So a bit of background, obviously, you know, there's nothing new to you. Back in 2019, the County Council published its Climate Change Manifesto, and then shortly afterwards Carbon Reduction Plan and Derbyshire Climate Change and Environment Framework. Since then there's been sort of good progress, I think, internally, particularly with our own emissions. So there is an ambition to be net zero organisation by 2032 or sooner, and within the sort of first 10 years of the tracking of the emissions, we've seen a 55% reduction in our internal emissions, which is slightly ahead of kind of target where we want to be. But a lot of that is obviously down to some of the quick wins that were done quite early on, such as LED street lighting and things like that. So we do recognise there's an awful lot that we still need to do to make sure that we do continue to rapidly decrease our own emissions to meet the net zero target as soon as possible. And also that there's a similar speed of reduction is required across the county. So as a county council, our role obviously varies from having direct control through to sort of involving, engaging, commissioning and working with others across the county and wider on projects and initiatives. So back at the end of last year, there was a series of workshops held within the council on different sort of themes and departments, looking at developing a sort of climate change action plan going forward. And one of the key things that came out of those workshops was a recommendation for a more formalised and structured strategy that would set out what we would do over the sort of immediate, short and longer term to reduce emissions, again, across our own activities and estate and wider across the county. Following that, it was agreed by our corporate management team and also by the portfolio holder for climate change at that time that a strategy should be commissioned. So we commissioned Consultants Arup to develop this for us, and we've been working with them for probably 6 months plus now to develop the strategy, and it's been developed through consultation internally and some external consultation as well, and then collating all the information that's available out there to look at what the priority should be. So we have a final draft of the strategy that is going to Cabinet next month. It covers a sort of 4-year initial period, so it's very much the immediate and short-term actions with a view to being fully updated at the end of that 4-year period, but also with an annual review as well to look at how we're doing against the actions and the targets, look at any changes sort of politically or national government changes to legislation or funding or policy. So it is a technical document. You know, when you see it, you'll realise it's a bit of a beast. It's 110 pages, but the intention is it will be a public-facing document following approval from Cabinet. But we will be developing a sort of easy read summary version of this as well, which I think what most people will probably want to be looking at and digesting. So we're working on that at the moment. And as part of the process as well, we've been looking at the manifesto pledges made by the Conservative Party and looking at how the strategy can help to deliver the things in there as well. So in terms of the strategy itself, like I said, it's a bit of a beast. There's the sort of the initial context of developing the strategy, why it's important, how it was done, how we will deliver it, the emissions pathway, both again for our county council internal emissions and Derbyshire-wide emissions as well, looking at what those trajectories might look like based on business as usual, no further action is taken. And then if we look to incorporate some of the priority actions within what the strategy is saying. There's a section in there on national action, so that sets out our role as a county council in terms of influencing national government and where we are dependent and relying on national government to take action and provide some sort of steering guidance on certain areas. And then the most crucial part is the roadmap. So this is where it sets out the priority actions across 5 different themes, the first of which is very much focused around our own estate and operations. And then the further 4 themes are around wider working across the county. So low carbon economy, decarbonising the domestic sector, transport and travel, and waste. So the series of, I think it's 28 priority actions, but there also is a longer list of actions and initiatives as well that we're going to be looking into and investigating over the sort of the short term. The strategy also sets out quite a high level monitoring reporting, and that's some work that we're looking at the moment, looking how best to monitor and report on progress against the strategy and the actions within it. It's worth just highlighting that the strategy is very much focused on emissions reduction, so it doesn't touch on adaptation to any great extent, the other side of climate change, but that is something again that we are definitely starting to look at, and we do recognise that it is just as big a piece of work, if not more, looking at the risks and resilience and adaptation. And it will be complemented by a natural capital strategy, which I've got a slide on a bit further on. So just really quickly, I won't go through this in detail, but some of the priority actions, just to give you a bit of a taster. So for our council estate and operations, some of the key things are such as developing a sustainable procurement framework, which is what we're working on at the moment. Looking at staff and elected members training, again, I've got a slide on that further down the line. Looking at scope 3 emissions, because at the moment we only actively measure on emissions from sort of energy use within our buildings, grey fleet, core fleet and street lighting. So we want to understand the wider impact of our sort of procurement, commissioning and project activities. And then decarbonising fleet and the rollout of electric vehicles within our own fleet and also within kind of the grey fleet elements as well. So low carbon economy, this is where we're working with businesses across the county, working with organisations such as D2N2, Midlands Energy Hub to look at things such as skills training and growth, looking at innovation, supporting SMEs, for example, through the Green Entrepreneurs Scheme, and then looking at sort of renewable energy and links to planning activities as well. So really trying to bulk up the understanding and focus within the county on those elements. For decarbonise the domestic sector, which is a county council, this isn't an area that we have a lot of control over, but we can work with partners, for example, looking at low carbon heat and energy across the county, education empowerment, and again, skills and training, recognising that there is a huge skills gap in the sort of domestic retrofitting sector. Transport and travel, so this includes looking at new enhanced bus partnership arrangements, looking at supporting and rolling out cycling and walking and wider forms of active transport. And then again, linking to planning, looking at place-based development and transport planning. And then the final of the 5 sort of key areas is waste. So again, this is a lot of working with partners across the county, suppliers, manufacturers, looking at sort of behaviour change, reuse, collaboration and waste reduction. So as well as the development of the strategy itself, we've been developing a new governance structure over recent months to really guide the climate change work within the council. And this very much focuses around a new climate change environment and programme board, which has been established to very much provide sort of strategic guidance and ownership of the work that goes on within the council related to climate change. So it's not a decision-making board, but it is very much guiding where the priorities should be, making sure that we are on track to deliver what we say and what we need to be doing. There is the new scrutiny committee, which again I will come on to later, which is quite a new area for the climate change programme of work. and then to deliver the sort of actions within the strategy and the wider activities as well. We recognise that it can't be delivered by a two-person climate change team. So what we've done is developed sort of theme teams across the council, headed up by theme leads who are relatively senior officers that have got sort of the authority and the knowledge and the leadership to be able to drive forward projects within their themes. So some of the themes include obviously transport, procurement, natural capital, internal and external engagement. So this, I think, as well will help to make sure that we're doing the right things at the right time. And then programme manager me, so sort of the link between the themes and the theme delivery and then the programme board. So just to give a bit of an overview on sort of current activities and current priorities in terms of sort of developing this programme of work. So we're working with the theme leads, as I said, to review what the strategy is saying and to start to set out work plans at a bit more of a detailed level to see what's going to be delivered over the sort of immediate and short term. The actions in the strategy are obviously quite broad, so it's important to break them down to actually delivery plans, look at where the interdependencies are, look at where we need to work with stakeholders, both internally and externally, and look at where the sort of interim deliverables are and when we need to be measuring performance. Doing a more detailed assessment of cost as well, complexity and the council's role to really understand, again, where we need to be working with others, where we need to be seeking funding and working collaboratively on those sort of things as well. And as I mentioned before, a key aspect as well is looking at how we best need to measure and report on performance. We have the annual emissions reporting, but that's obviously one element. So we're looking at other KPIs and performance indicators that make sure that both at the strategy level and also perhaps at sort of the theme level as well, that things are happening when they should do, and when we can start to identify if there are issues and bring things back on track. Quite importantly, we need to do more kind of structured engagement and communication. And again, this is an area I think that we recognise that we do need to do more of and get better at. So we're in the process of developing an engagement strategy and also a bit of a communication strategy as well, which includes things such as updating our website with more useful information and giving people chance to provide information to us and to ask questions and engage through that way. So the engagement plan is in development and that will be sort of produced over the next month or two. Vision Derbyshire, so we've been working with the districts and boroughs there, and there is a work stream on climate change, and we're looking there about how we can work best with the districts and borough councils in particular on different areas, whether that be training again, whether it be domestic retrofitting, so exploring that at the moment. Natural capital and biodiversity strategy I'll come on to in a little while. And as I mentioned before as well, the other side of climate change. So looking at climate risk, resilience and adaptation. Some work was done on this in the council, I think about 8 years ago now. So we're revisiting what was done then and looking at what is the best approach there, whether we need another strategy or whether it's building into risk assessment, and where we again need to work with partners, other stakeholders across the county on that, and the best way to approach that to make sure we are understanding the risks and addressing them in the best possible way. Another thing at the moment is a renewable energy spatial study for Derbyshire. So I think there's recognition that kind of from the planning side, there isn't necessarily any sort of stance or guidance on renewable energy kind of projects and installations. So we're working again with the districts and borough councils, Derby City Council and others on looking at doing a bit of a spatial study there that really sets out where the opportunities are from a planning perspective, what sort of things should be taken into account to really make sure that we are promoting and kind of driving forward renewable energy where possible. And then just a few other things, again, probably no surprises. So looking at EV charge points, both again within our own estate, but also wider across the county, looking at our role there and how we can work with wider public sector and private sector to help accelerate that. We're retrofitting 3 of our buildings with low carbon heating. So that's through the Public Sector Decarbonisation Fund. We're also developing a single-use plastics policy, which is also going to Cabinet next month. So hopefully get that embedded as an official policy. Mentioned sustainable procurement. So we are looking at developing a sustainable procurement framework and looking how best to embed sustainability in the widest sense across procurement activities, contracting, and how to make sure that the right decisions are being made at the right time through procurement. exploring hydrogen opportunities, and also tree planting. So obviously a kind of a bit of a hot topic at the moment. So looking at how we can again work with others to sort of accelerate tree planting, but not just tree planting, wider sort of biodiversity and natural capital work as well. So just moving on from the strategy, I've been asked to sort of mention a little bit about climate change training. So historically, climate change training within the council has sort of consisted of an online module that people would self-assign and undertake in their own time. We've done other things in the past as well, such as 1.5 hour training to councillors, which was successful. And then we've done a bit of carbon literacy training as well in the past. But we do recognise that we do need to make it clear that sort of climate change and wider sustainability should be a consideration in everybody's role, and everybody needs to understand the direction that we as a county council are going in, our commitments, our ambitions, and how it affects their roles and their wider lives as well. So we actually had a paper approved by our corporate management team a couple of weeks ago to develop a bit more of a kind of formalised and thorough training package for both staff and elected members. And this consists of 3 things. Initially, it hopefully will evolve over time and become more detailed. But the first of which is to make a 30-minute e-learning unit a mandatory part of induction process for all new members of staff, but also actively encourage it and promote it with existing staff through our internal comms and through sort of management team meetings. And as part of that, we're going to be setting targets for sort of percentage of people at different grades undertaking that training. So more senior grades, we would hope that sort of 100% of those staff would do that training, and then change as sort of grades throughout the organisation. We're also going to be offering a shorter training session to all members of staff who can sign up to it with their manager's approval. So this is a sort of 1.5 to 2 hours training session, either online or face-to-face, for officers or elected members. It can be tweaked according to the audience, and this is based around the concepts of carbon literacy. So a really good overview and a bit more detailed obviously than the 30-minute e-learning unit. So that's something that we're going to be promoting and running throughout the year. And then also offering carbon literacy training to those members of staff and elected members that have got a climate change responsibility. So obviously this is a full day or 2 half-day course, so we have to be a bit more controlled about who we can offer this to, and we're investigating the best way to deliver that, whether it's delivered through internally trained carbon literacy trainers or we get other organisations to come in. So I think that's really positive, and we've been asked obviously to report on the progress of that regularly to our corporate management team. So yeah, quite excited to be getting that rolled out. Just a couple of final things. So I mentioned natural capital and biodiversity strategy. So this is I think it's a really exciting piece of work. It's not an area I know a huge amount about, so I'm looking forward to learning a lot. So we've just commissioned this study. Some external consultants are going to be delivering it for us. So it's a strategy for the whole of the county, including the parts of the Peak District National Park that fall within the county's boundaries. It's going to be delivered over the next 12 months. And again, this is a very collaborative project. So it's also with the City Council and District and Borough Councils and the Peak District National Park, but with wider stakeholders as well. They're going to be involved in the steering group, such as Natural England, Environment Agency, Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, and others. That's just being confirmed at the moment. So what this study will do, it will look at natural capital, so the natural capital assets across the county, to understand what kind of ecosystem services they provide at the moment. So things like air quality, climate change, resilience, amenity and leisure benefits, sort of water quality benefits. So what they're providing at the moment and what the county derive from those services. It will look at potentially what the county will need in the future in terms of these ecosystem services, and then look to identify kind of the natural capital assets that would be needed to provide these and where they potentially would be needed. So it's really about looking at where we need to protect, enhance and increase sort of natural assets across the county. It will also have quite a good focus on biodiversity. So looking at the sort of asset sites, networks and connectivity and corridors across the county, and really form part of this county-wide approach to strategic biodiversity conservation. So ultimately, it will help all local authorities and wider stakeholders as well to really have an evidence-based approach to looking at maintaining and enhancing their networks of habitats and green infrastructure. And it will also link to the support of things such as biodiversity metrics for biodiversity offsetting. It will look at supporting the delivery of biodiversity net gain, and really provide the evidence base for things such as local nature recovery strategies and other things that will come out of the emerging environment bill. This will clearly also involve working with a lot of sort of landowners as well, and engaging with them to make sure that we've got, you know, a full picture of what's happening across the county and where the kind of the evidence is and what the recommendations are saying. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. Like I said, we've just commissioned the consultant. We had the initial meeting last week, so there'll be some quite early deliverables, which we're hoping we'll be able to sort of publish as they go along, rather than wait till we get to the end of the 12 months and then say, here we are, here's the strategy. And then final slide is just a bit of an update on our new Improvement and Scrutiny Committee. So this is a very new committee. I think we're having our second meeting very shortly. So it only met once sort of formally as the sort of scrutiny committee. It's one of 6 of these committees across the council. The others being things such as people and health, and I can't remember the others. So yeah, it's one of 6, and its aim really is just to make sure that kind of the work that the climate change programme is delivering is fit for purpose, is delivering what it needs to be doing, and also to make recommendations for its improvement as well. So it's got an overarching role. So whereas some of the scrutiny committees are very much focused on one kind of department or one function, obviously climate change is across the council. So it's very much looking as a whole, and also wider again across the county and wider, looking at our role as a county council and how we are working with others. And it's made up of 10 members, so quite across broad spectrum from the different political parties as well. So it's only met once so far, and going forward, I think there's been a work plan being developed about what that committee wants to be looking at and what it wants to be scrutinising. So I think it's really great. It makes sure that we are on track, and really helps to identify perhaps new priorities as well that haven't necessarily become apparent yet. So that's it in terms of slides. If I stop sharing so I can see everybody.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Caroline. That was very comprehensive. You've certainly been busy in your first 4 months. Well, before, there's going to be loads of questions. I know I've got loads of questions already, but before I get on to anybody else, I just want to raise a question from Anne, who couldn't be here and sent her a question in. So she was the one that raised the issue about training. She actually works for DCC, and you know, I think she was saying, you know, the e-learning module, less than 200 people have completed it. I mean, you said you're going to try and progress that. But she says the problem is that the emphasis is focused on individual employees taking action rather than an organisational approach to guide managers and teams in steps that they can take to reduce travel, energy use and consumption of resources at work. And the reliance on individual employees having to take action will not have much effect and is hard to monitor. So I think the message from an employee is that it needs a more sort of, you know, a more joined up approach to focus on what teams can do, rather than just, you know, making sure it's all goes back to the individuals and what they can do. So that's just the message from one employee.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Absolutely. I think that goes back to this formation of the themes as well, that it is a way really of cascading that at, you know, quite a senior sort of management level, and making sure that that's understood as well. And yeah, absolutely, it's a really good point.
Okay, does anybody, if you want to put your hands up if you've got a question for Caroline, and I'll I'll maybe take 2 or 3 points because we haven't got much time. Dave has got a question. Dave, do you want to unmute?
Just while we're talking about the training, I wondered, Caroline, who's actually who's providing the training? Have you got somebody like CAT or Centre for Sustainable Energy, anybody like that, you know, external body offering the training? And then another question about that, you said that it's going to be offered. When I was at work, I had to do training. It was compulsory. I just wondered whether that's possible.
Do you want to answer that, Caroline? Then I'll do Michael and then Steve. Yeah,
of course. So in terms of kind of delivering the training, the intention at the moment is for kind of the existing climate change team, so myself and Denise, to deliver the kind of the 1.5 to 2 hour session based around carbon literacy. In terms of the longer sort of 1 day more detailed training, that is something we are looking into, the best options in terms of who's best capacity and knowledge, and obviously value for money to deliver that. So that is definitely work in progress. We do obviously want to roll this out as much as possible, and we do acknowledge that we will need additional resources perhaps to deliver this training to get the right enough members of staff trained up. So yeah, I think all I can say really is work in progress. In terms of kind of making it mandatory, so it will be mandatory, the sort of half an hour online thing for new members of staff. Again, I think it's something that we need to perhaps consider as we roll it out and monitor kind of how many people are undertaking the training, and look at whether it is an option to make it mandatory, because we do have other sort of annual training requirements that all staff have to do. So whether that becomes one of those, I think that from my point of view, that would be a really fantastic thing. So yeah, again, work in progress, and something that we would definitely look to try and get a recommendation approved for.
Okay, thanks, Kai. Michael, I think you were next.
Yeah, I'm still trying to formulate the question, because it feels still like a rather scruffy spider's nest of a question. And it's principally about the way things relate to one another. I suppose I'd start off by a kind of nonsense statement that there are how many district and borough councils within the county? Is it something like 14 or thereabouts? Each of them, or most of them, have declared climate emergencies, and to the degree to which they succeed in achieving them, there might not be anything left for the county to do. Quite obviously absurd that there are some very specific relationships, but all have seen, that is, or have embraced a responsibility to deal with more than their own estate. In fact, their own estates tend to be rather small. I did a quick sum the other day. I'm not sure that I've got the details right here, but Derbyshire's own estate, I think, is something like 0.3% of the emissions within the county. So it doesn't amount to very much when viewed that way, important though it is. Nevertheless, it does suggest how much more important the engagement with other agencies matters. So it's almost like a kind of Russian doll, one organization sitting within another, or maybe Siamese twinned Russian dolls, because, for example, the relationship with the city seems quite important, because ARPS, the same consultants you've employed, have recently completed for them a study which carries the title Establishing a Regional Hydrogen Roadmap in Derby and the wider region. And that wider region is D2N2. It's Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. Now,
Michael, do you want to just, sorry, because there's lots of questions, we haven't got much time. Could you get to your question?
Just like I told you, it's a scruffy one, spiders. But essentially, how do you see actually creating this network of relationships where you quite clearly have very much overlapping responsibilities?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think being honest with you, I think since joining the council and the new role, that is one of the things that kind of struck me, that there's a lot of work going on, a lot of different organisations, lots of groups and forums, all having quite similar discussions, I think. So as part of, I mentioned we're developing this engagement strategy, and that is very much setting out kind of who's doing what, who we need to be engaging with, both in terms of districts and boroughs, but wider stakeholders. And I mentioned Vision Derbyshire as well, and that's another forum where we're kind of early stages of understanding what each local authority is doing, where there's duplication. We've started looking at kind of skills where each authority is in terms of strategy development and all that type of thing, to try and make it a bit more joined up. I think it's a difficult task, as I'm sure you understand, but it is something that we are working on and focusing on through D2N2, again through the sort of Midlands Energy Hub, looking at the work that's being done there, and where possible working together through forums such as that, so we're not all going off and trying to do similar things with having perhaps a lesser impact. So no, absolutely, I acknowledge your point. It's difficult, but I think with this new strategy, engagement, more resources, it will become more joined up. I know that's probably not a very good answer, but
okay. Maybe we'll come back to that, because that's something I'm also interested in. Steve, do you want to ask your question?
Unfortunately, Caroline, and thank you for a very impressive and comprehensive presentation. I have the same sorts of concerns because my concern is about policy and strategy coherence, because my work with some of the local universities and with the Peak District National Park and D2N2 all cross over what you're trying to do. And I'm particularly interested in community energy. But my question really is about this notion of an engagement strategy, which you're working on, and also scrutiny. And I'd like to hear more about that, if you can, in a short space of time, because it seems to me there's a reluctance to put your strategy up for public and independent scrutiny. And I'm really concerned because we're all in this together. The Sustainable Development Goals principle is based on leave no one behind. And yet the councils, district and county, seem to be leaving the public behind. Why? And it's not your responsibility per se, but it's a message that I hope you'll take forward, because I'm desolate. Because why is this happening when we're all so keenly interested in participating and supporting?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And yet again, I completely agree. And you know, the engagement strategy, although you know it probably should have come earlier, I think it is very much around engagement through delivery. We recognise that as a county council we can't do everything by ourselves, and we do need to work more closely with the community in the broadest sense of the word. No, absolutely. I think that's
there's a whole panoply of specialists in this area who are really sitting on their hands waiting to be asked. I mean, there's a number here, but there's a wider number outside of this particular group. And as I say, I cannot believe there is no engagement and no process early on, because if you leave us behind, we'll be behind.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, and just to add to that, you know, like, I mean, this is just a small fraction of the coalition members, and we all represent, a lot of us represent wider groups, and we can help get the message out as well. So I think we feel a bit underutilized and a bit frustrated. So anyway, Wendy and then Laura. So Wendy, do you want to come in?
Yes, I've already sort of written up as a question, but just to reiterate, I think what Steve has said is very important, and the word engagement is probably going to come up again and again and again. We were told when the councils made their climate declaration, oh yes, the county council is dealing with citizens' assembly. It's going to be a collective approach, but we haven't heard a word about it. And there is nothing coming from any local authority at all, county, districts, boroughs, whatever, that about recognising that the community is a very powerful force, and that we represent at least a third of the emissions of this whole county. And the county can't do it on its own, district can't do it on its own. So I would like to know, are there any plans afoot for a citizen assembly, and how does that fit into what you call an engagement and communication strategy?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, on the citizens assembly point, I mean, I can't really provide much context on that. I think we have got with Councillor Barry Lewis, we have got a session with him, and that kind of the engagement and the ideas of forums and ways to do that is on the agenda for that. So I can't really give a response on that now. But in terms of the engagement, the strategy will include, you know, all kind of spheres of engagement, right from kind of the informing, so, you know, members of the public and communities that just want to know what's happening, right through to active engagement, sort of decision making within delivery and the wider things as that. So
does
yeah,
decision-making mean, excuse me, sorry, does decision-making informing us decisions, or does it give us an opportunity as a community to input those decisions?
It does, absolutely. Inputting decisions into the delivery of the strategy and the actions. Yeah, we're very keen to understand kind of views and ideas and opinions on delivery, the best way to deliver, again, who we need to be engaging with. No, absolutely, it's very much around decision-making, giving decision-making sort of powers and influence through the delivery of the strategy and the actions. Yeah.
Thank you. Laura and then Anne. Yeah.
I work in a school in Chesterfield. It was until very, very recently Derbyshire School. It's now been academised, as have most. so I'm not sure whether the buildings are still counted as part of your what's the word, estate or not. Do you know whether that would be the case?
So it's not a maintained school anymore. So I mean, in terms of kind of what we measure, we wouldn't be measuring emissions from non-maintained schools, but in terms of kind of probably just touch slightly on kind of the school's agenda anyway, because I didn't mention it earlier on, but again, nothing we're looking at. It feels like I'm saying we're looking at and we're starting to do this, but we are looking at how to work with schools both from a curriculum point of view and a property point of view, and that will be both maintained schools and other schools as well across the county.
Because obviously you've saved a lot of carbon by selling off buildings, and now we've got most schools academized, whether that's good or bad. But my big issue is reach out to those schools. I mean, the kids, nobody talks about it. Yes, of course it's covered in geography. Yes, of course it's covered in science, but it's not shouted. No one's shouting this out as a big thing. We're in an emergency, and I am a lone voice. I wander around, I walk past the classroom, I turn off lights. There's no recycling, there's no this, there's no that, there's no the other. And I am so sad. But what I'd like you to take from this is that if you're doing this, the single-use plastic thing. So why? So the message, it needs to be absolutely clear, because the kids go into the canteen and they buy these tiny little plastic bottles of juice. I mean, they could buy a carton, but you are selling that it's county council canteen. It's still run by Derbyshire County Council, and I'm just at my wit's end. How can we deal with the problem when the kids are buying that and chuck it in the bin, buying that and chuck it in the bin, buying that, chuck it in the bin? There's no strategy, there's no system, there's no, and that really worries me, because the message is not getting to them. I'm just that mad green woman, that climate change woman, but hey ho, I don't care. But it needs to change that, and I'm really worried. And schools are a perfect place to get a message out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take those points away. Yeah, thank you.
That comes back to Michael's point as well, doesn't it, about the whole joined up thing as well. Anne, have you got a question?
Change needs to be at the heart of every decision that the council makes, and I'm not clear who's going to actually enable that, so that it's every time you make a decision at a cabinet or at the council meeting or in other groups, you actually say, okay, the carbon emissions are actually the thing we've got to think about first. So for instance, when you look at your investments, how are you going to actually assess the carbon for all your investments across the county?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's it.
Yeah. No, if I just respond on that quickly. So this is something that we have been looking at, and we are incorporating within cabinet reports a standard section, the same way that sort of legal implications, financial implications, for example, would be considered. That we are going to be incorporating a section on climate change and wider sustainability. So that will become a core consideration for any department or officer that is developing a report. So it has to be considered, reported on, and forms part of the decision making. So yeah, again, very important. I do agree. It's something that we have recognised, and we are taking steps to address it.
Okay, thanks. Peter's got his hand up, and Jez, I saw your hand up. I've also got a question, but we'll take Peter's question.
Hello, I've got two questions for the price of one. So this is a special offer.
Quickly, Peter. Yeah.
The first thing is, I'm working inside the council, and asked Derby Council, and incidentally, Derby is part of Derbyshire, but to some extent we're separated. But we need to think about Derby as well. But what I'm finding inside Derby Council is there's all sorts of silos and barriers. And even though we talk about talking to others outside, there are real issues. And actually, and off the record, the council's been very scared. No, some people inside the council have been very scared of dealing with Extinction Rebellion. But that's only an example of difficulties of us overcoming it. And this is a problem for all councils, one way or other. We develop methods of engaging breaking beyond our boundaries in the same way has been done over COVID. But we haven't done that over climate change. And I can tell you lots of examples where there are barriers in different councils in Derbyshire. It's something we've got to challenge. We can talk the talk, but it's not happening as yet. There's still actual fears. The second point I want to make is about training. And I've helped deliver some training over the carbon literacy program. And I've been won over by the carbon literacy program for all sorts of reasons, particularly because it addresses the strategies of making change happen inside your own organization and challenges. And I've been doing it's Serena from the Derbyshire County Council who's been leading in that. And she's also doing that with elected officers shortly, starting, I think it's next week, I'm not sure, in Chesterfield. And I'm also looking at trying to do this similar training with members of our community, so they don't have to be employees, but people involved in community action groups. And I'd be interested if anybody's interested in that.
Sorry, did you have a question, Peter, or was that just you just want to make those points?
Do you think what I said was relevant?
Oh, yes, it was totally relevant. But I just wondered whether you had a question as well. But no, that's fine. That's fine. We'll move on to Jez then. Points well made. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I won't say much because I'm obviously on the climate change committee and will have plenty of opportunity to ask questions. And I know Caroline has been working hard with Denise, so I kind of fully support the work that they're doing, and sometimes don't envy the position that they're in sometimes. But so just two very quick points from me. I suppose one is just we are meeting on the 20th of, the Climate Change Committee is meeting on the 20th of, on Monday. And I've just sent a link up, the strategy's on there. So if people do want to put questions or contact me with any issues or questions they want to raise, I will try my best to collate those as far as possible and certainly prioritise them, and use them to put questions at the Climate Change Committee prior to that strategy going to Cabinet, to influence and change that as much as possible before it does go to Cabinet. And the second thing is, and there's been lots of talk about engagement. I think Caroline's recognised that kind of, ideally engagement should have taken place. I think what I would say is I think that is dead right. We are where we are, and what I don't want to see is for further delays, I suppose, while we carry out an engagement strategy. But what I would like to see, and one of the questions I'm going to be asking on Monday is that we should have engagement, and that should therefore be able to influence, to change the priorities of the council if necessary, and certainly change the actions and the activities, that it isn't fixed in stone by the Cabinet. And the meeting with Councillor Lewis on engagement does allow experts within the community and the wider community to be able to change the strategy and the council's priorities. So there isn't a question, it's just a comment and an opportunity to engage with me if you want to access the Climate Change Committee.
Thanks, Jez, that's much appreciated. Look, it's nearly 10 to 8. I've got so many questions, but Steve, you've still got your hand up.
I want a quick question. It's about scrutiny.
Very, very quick, Steve, because I've got to go on.
Okay. You're no doubt aware that there's an organisation in Lancaster who's doing a league table of local authorities' plans. Are you going to adopt that process and implement your plan for scrutiny by that organisation and be part of that process?
I think I'd have to take that away, and I'm perfectly happy to answer that at a later date. I think,
okay. Can I say to you, there's a wide degree of support amongst our group that should be your purpose.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep.
There's still a lot of questions I've got, but I think given the time, I think we'll leave it there for today. And I hope, Caroline, thank you very much for taking the time. I know you've got small children, so we'll let you go. But I just wanted to say, I hope this is not just a one-off, that there's I don't want you to come to every meeting, of course, but I hope there's an ongoing communication, because as you can see, we're very, very keen to get involved and engage with the council and the activities. You know, we're very keen that the council, you know, works with all the district councils as well, because, you know, we're all lobbying our own district councils as well. And, you know, please see us as sort of critical friends, and also sort of, you know, we can help you on some things as well. So thank you very much, and you know, just give Caroline the usual you know, appreciation.
Thank
and
you.
We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, same. And please reach out at any point. You should have my contact details, or Lisa, perhaps you can share them. But happy to, you know, have a chat or respond to emails at any time. So yeah, good to meet you all, and thank you for inviting me. And I hope it's been useful. And yeah, let's keep talking.
Very useful. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Caroline.